the Florida Panthers, they're hardos, they're hard asses, and yes, they win the Stanley Cup back to back. Just pure domination on and off the ice, mental games. They're singing Pink Pony Club now in their cup celebrations. Matthew Tkachuk has it out for this Oilers team. It goes back to him in Calgary in those days. That rivalry. It's quite the story. It's quite the season. The NHL is definitely winning. The hockey's better for this series. Hockey's better for the whole season in general. But yeah, this is just crazy. Like the fact that they were able to make it look easier than last year when it felt like, in my opinion, Edmonton got deeper, especially up front. Yeah, it's like credit to the Florida Panthers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely credit to the Panthers. I mean, there's no doubt about it that they're the best team in the NHL and have been over the past 2 years. There's an argument for the past 3 years, right? Like they were in the Cup final 3 years ago and didn't get it done, and their resiliency to continue to churn out, a roster and make smart moves to get themselves back in position to obviously win the Cup last year and then win it this year. It's very commendable. The team has done a fantastic job. The franchise is on a completely different level in terms of where it was even 5 years ago. And yeah, I agree, Justin. I think it is good for the NHL. We've seen some really good stories come out around this final. We've seen some really good news, and yeah, while the viewership in the States is still not where we'd always want it, but I think it still helps to make strides in the way that they have. Connor McDavid obviously being the best player in the NHL and being a part of 2 straight finals, even though they were both losses. That's important. You always want to see your highest quality players play in the best games possible, and that's what we've seen. But I can't lie, I am slightly disappointed in the Oilers. Particularly their efforts in game 5 and 6 to go down like that was unfortunate.
I don't think. Okay, so here's my disagreement with that. I don't think it's the Oilers players. I'm more so disappointed with Chris Knoblauch.
I mean,
the series, in my opinion.
I don't know how you can say that when they got just absolutely blown out like multiple games. Like I agree, like
decisions that like led to that, in my opinion.
Like in terms of Ross, like who's in and out, like I don't,
like not just.
I don't know that Jeff Skinner or Stuart Skinner for that. Like they were in a bad spot.
Out of the lineup, like taking him out of the lineup didn't make any sense. Moving Evander Kane, even though he took some dumb penalties, moving him down to the fourth line effectively took him out of the series. Did not have any mojo and was great for you the rest of the playoffs. You ended up just trying to do the exact same thing over and over again, like Connor McDavid alluded to after Game 6, banging their heads against the wall. They were one of the best teams getting the puck or breaking the puck out of their own zone in the playoffs up until the final. And then it just seemed like Chris Knoblauch didn't want to change anything. And then not only that, like just the understanding of like rest over fatigue, like you had Chris Knoblauch running his guys and I understand like you're gonna have to like at some point in Game 6 load them up, and you're gonna have to in the third period, like you're trying to come back. Connor McDavid's gonna have to play like 12 minutes that period, but like in Game 5, why is he playing so much in the first like 2 periods, and why are they taking minute and a half long shifts? It just didn't make any sense compared to Florida taking like 40 to 45 second shifts. That adds up over the course of a game, and I think that makes them fresher for the third period, where they just like took the Edmonton Oilers and dismantled them completely because they looked out of gas in the third period of Game 5, and ever since then they just didn't have the energy to come back. So that's why I think like. Yes, it's on the players for sure. You can, but I look at these 2 losses and I'm like, that's more coaching in my opinion.
Yeah, I can see that. I just want to jump in because I definitely can see some roster management moves. I just think he got to a point where like the only thing I disagree was that he didn't want to make changes. It almost like it felt to me like he made too many changes, like the moving of Evander Kane down and then the in and outs of certain players. The goalies aside, because I think the decisions with the goalies, I think were played the way you have to play them, especially going back to Skinner in Game 6. You live and die by the guy that ultimately is probably going to be their starter next year. And whether that's right or wrong, that's the way they look at him, and you can't go out with your backup. I think it's just there was never like a point in the series where it felt like the Oilers had control depth-wise. And that's just a factor of how the team was built in Florida. But depth had sort of been the biggest strength of the Oilers outside of your two main guys and stretches of good Stuart Skinner, like we saw in last year's playoffs. But depth had carried this team. There was all the stats of McDavid's percentage of points and goals compared to the depth. Last year, it was like essentially all favoring McDavid and Draisaitl. Now, this year, the depth chipped in the first three series. And then they were absolutely stymied for the rest of this playoffs against the Florida Panthers. You saw nothing from the bottom. And, look, RNH ends up coming out with a broken hand, and he's not even really a depth piece. But when you kind of fit these guys in and out of the lineup and they're already not playing every game, the Jeff Skinners and the Kasperi Kapanens, who wasn't available for the beginning of the playoffs, available as in he wasn't playing, you're not going to get the mojo of these guys to play and get involved in these type of games, and so they're not going to contribute. So I just think the depth of the Florida Panthers is it's more credit to them than the Oilers lost. But I agree, like, disappointment is an understatement. Those depth guys gave them nothing, and although McDavid and Draisaitl finished with 30 plus points, again, it's the same narrative every single year. You got no goalie, you got no depth, you got to rely on the main guys. And I guess throw Evan Bouchard in that mix now because he's going to end up getting paid and he's part of that core. But disappointing to say the least.
It's not just like, here's what I'll say to that. It's not just the Edmonton Oilers though. Like it's every team. Go ask Tampa Bay. Go ask Toronto. Go ask Carolina. Like Florida does this to every team. They make you mad. They take away your best ability in the game and they say beat us with anything else other than that because you're not beating us with this. And they make everyone mad because they don't have that ability anymore. And for the Edmonton Oilers, it's breaking out of their own zone with speed in the neutral zone that creates to their great offensive plays led by none other than Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. Once you shut that down, then it relies on the depth. And like you said, the depth wasn't there, partly because also Florida's depth is at the same time insane.
Yeah.
Having Brad Marchand, Anton Lundell, and Estu Listerainen on your third line, that could be anyone's other second line in the NHL. Like, they call him Baby Barkov for a reason. Like, it's ridiculous what Lundell has become. Like, that contract last year when he signed it, like, I thought that was a ridiculous team-friendly contract at the time, and it's already proven that he's outplayed it.
Yeah, I think just quickly on that, it's funny. Like, I heard, I think Spit and Chicklets, they had Bob Stauffer, I think, on. I think it was Lundell got picked, and then it was Seth Jarvis, and then it was Dylan Holloway. Like, those were how the picks in the draft went, just to see, like, would you rather have a Lundell or a Seth Jarvis? I mean, that's a different story, but then Holloway, who's not even on the Oilers anymore. It's just, like, how it all played out, unfortunately. And even the stat of Brad Marchand a few years ago when in Game 5 he was on Boston, he could have ended the Florida Panthers season by scoring on that breakaway against Sergei Bobrovsky. Doesn't. And we know what happened. And now he's on the Florida Panthers. You could have stopped this narrative from happening 2 years ago, whatever. And now you're the one of two main reasons. That's a lie. There's one of many, but he's the second in Conn Smythe voting by like 8 votes to Sam Bennett to make the.
I think he should have won.
It's crazy.
I think he should have won. Personally, he was my Conn Smythe over Bennett, but that's neither here nor anyone. Like, there was a bunch of guys I think could have deserved it on the floor. You could have, like, I think maybe it was you, Brandon, I was talking to, or someone else before, like, in the last couple of days. Like, if for the NHL, I'm pretty sure you have to submit your Conn Smythe ballot after the second period of, like, a potential game. So, like, Sam Reinhart goes and scores twice more, like, in the third period, even though they're both empty netters. That's 4 goals in the game. Maybe he would have got some more Conn Smythe love. Who knows? But, like, yeah, there were so many Panthers on that team that, like, you could have. Like, can you talk about depth? I think they had, like, 8 guys that get 20 points or something like that, or at least 6.
Something like that.
Like, I don't think we've seen a team do that before. Like, I don't think we've seen like a team with that many guys put up that many points in a playoff run.
Yeah, no, I think it speaks more so to their system just because of
True.
how difficult it is to build a strong offensive, juggernaut in the salary cap era. And you're seeing Florida put together a team with guys that have come from other, organizations who were kind of cast-offs, and they come to Florida and they seem to just fit like a glove, regardless of what it is. You look at Bennett and Kachuk, and obviously now Marchand. Like, there's a ton of guys that have that weren't homegrown. I think you can only really say on this squad, in terms of the core, it's Barkov, it's Ekblad, and from there, I mean, there's other guys that have been drafted by the organization and have come up with the team, but pretty much most of their depended on players are coming from other organizations, and like I said, we're kind of cast off, and we're seen as maybe not as not as high in their potential as maybe once when they were drafted, but they come to Florida, they work as a group, and the addition of Paul Maurice over the last few years has just been a complete game changer for them, and that's what's that all of those points put together just has allowed them to find their way and has put them in a position to continue it on. I don't think that anyone's looking at this and saying, oh, they're done after 2 years or 2 wins. Obviously, we'll see what happens in free agency, but it looks like the majority of this group could be back, and we could see them for sure try to take another run at a three-peat, which would be incredible and something that obviously hasn't been done in the NHL in a long time.